This is Newsmax TV. I'm Ashley Martella. Do government restrictions on gun ownership actually increase the crime rate? Our guest says yes. John Lott is an author, economist, and criminologist. He's a senior research scientist at the University of Maryland. As a research scientist, he's also held positions at the University of Chicago, Yale University, the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, and the American Enterprise Institute. He holds a PhD in economics from UCLA. He's written 5 books. The 3rd edition of his breakthrough study of gun laws, More Guns, Less Crime, has just been released. Welcome to Newsmax, John.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on, Ashley.
Please explain that title, More Guns, Less Crime.
Well, guns can make it easier for bad things to happen, but they can also make it easier for people to protect themselves and prevent bad things from happening. Just as higher arrest rates or higher conviction rates or longer prison sentences can deter criminals from committing crimes, the fact that a would-be victim might be able to defend themselves can also make it riskier for criminals to commit crimes and deter some of them from doing so. You know, police are probably the single most important factor for reducing crime, but I think the police themselves understand that they virtually always arrive on the crime scene after the crime's been committed. And the question is, what do you advise someone to do when they're having to confront a criminal by themselves? And simply telling them to behave passively actually turns out to be very bad advice. By far the safest course of action for someone to take when they're confronting a criminal by themselves is to have a gun.
On the surface, to say crimes likely to involve guns would be reduced if more people were allowed to carry them may sound a bit illogical to some people. How do you reconcile that?
Well, criminals don't like to take any more risks than anybody else does. When I was chief economist at the United States Sentencing Commission during the late 80s, I must have read thousands of trial transcripts where prosecutors would go and get one criminal to turn evidence against another criminal. And the questions were virtually always the same. They'd say, why did you go and decide to rob this particular victim? And they would go and say, well, there might have been more money someplace else, but the person was armed, maybe it was a drug dealer, maybe it was a cab driver, they're often armed. And then we saw a victim that we thought would be an easy mark. So, you know, criminals are like anybody else. If you make some things more costly, they do less of it, and they tend to prefer easier jobs as opposed to harder jobs.
As a strong advocate of the Second Amendment, we understand you have your reservations about Obama's Supreme Court nomination of Elena Kagan. Please discuss this a bit with us.
Right. Well, both Sotomayor and Kagan are pretty much cut from the same cloth. Last year, when Sotomayor was testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee for confirmation, she claimed that there was no constitutional right to self-defense that was in the Constitution. And Kagan has made numerous statements on the gun issue, both while she was clerking for Justice Thurgood Marshall. She wrote a memo saying that she was unsympathetic to the notion that there was an individual right in the Second Amendment. And she, from 1995 to 1999, she spearheaded President Bill Clinton's push on gun control. So if people remember the pushes on gun control at that time, Elena Kagan was the person who was directly responsible for a lot of that.
There are those who accuse Kagan of playing fast and loose with the First Amendment too, with her arguments as Solicitor General against Citizens United case. She lost that one as the Supreme Court decided that prohibiting corporations from contributing to political campaigns was a violation of free speech. It's a ruling that set off a firestorm from the left. What's your take on this matter?
Well, I mean, I think it's the ruling was much broader than just corporations. It covered unions. It covered other types of interest groups. It was originally filed by a Right to Life group that had been prevented from advertising as a result of the existing campaign finance regulations. And it's not really obvious to me why people lose their individual rights just to express their feelings on political issues as soon as they form a group. That somehow individuals can go and take out advertising when they do it by themselves, but if you get 2 or 3 people who care about anything from right to life to gun ownership to anything else, they somehow aren't allowed to express their views on political issues.
John, you recently wrote an op-ed about Mexican President Calderon's false claim that Arizona's new immigration law utilizes racial profiling. In addressing Congress, he also called for renewing the federal assault weapons ban. What do you say to that?
Well, I guess I would suggest that President Calderon read the assault weapons ban that we had here, the federal assault weapons ban, as well as reading Arizona's law before he comments on those things. He seemed to think that the federal assault weapons ban covered machine guns. It didn't. It never did. What it covered was semi-automatic guns that may look like military weapons. And so you may have an AK-47. On the outside, it looks like that, but on the inside, the types of guns that were regulated by the federal assault weapons ban were the same as any deer hunting rifle, firing the same bullets with the same rapidity, doing the same damage. They were semi-automatic guns. Mexico has a right to be concerned about military-style weapons, military weapons that are there. They're used by the drug gangs, but as well as the rocket launchers and grenade firing mechanisms that they have. But you can't go and buy grenades or rocket launchers in gun stores in the United States. These weapons are coming from many other countries around the world. And and the military machine guns that they're concerned about are also not coming from the United States. And the assault weapons ban has nothing to do with whether or not they're coming from the United States.
Again, the name of his latest book, More Guns, Less Crime. It's the third edition of that. John Lott, thanks very much for speaking with us here at Newsmax, and good luck with the book.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud of the new material in it. Thank you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.